So I am in, excuse me, I am in the simulator program at Boston Children's Hospital. We're the people with the medical dummies, the rubber babies, and we do the live action role play medical training simulations. You might say it's like VR with all physical props. And today, Andrea and I are going to tell you about what we're doing with AR at Children's Hospital. But part of my job is to look at the scientific literature and see what's going on out there in XR for medicine. And I discovered chaos. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about what is and what is not VR and what is not AR, so it can so we can maybe settle things down a bit. First off, VR takes you somewhere else. Augmented reality adds to your environment. So we're sharing that view. Mixed reality is really a synonym for augmented reality, maybe AR with projectors, where you're mixing digital and physical objects. And XR is a catch-all term for all things AR and VR. Now, who cares, right? What's in a name? Well, it's important because XR, augmented reality or virtual reality, is interpreted by your hindbrain using the same circuitry you use to get around every day to understand your daily world. So it enters your mind uncritically and instantly. No other digital medium does this for you. So presence is the key to XR. Your body is 0 in the coordinate system for everything in XR. You treat illusory objects as real, and you feel like you're there in the mixed reality or the virtual. Look at Mel Slater's work on presence for this. So it allows you to focus on what's important. So in this excellent AR example, you've got a guy on a table. You have dedicated circuitry in your brain to understand what a person is, where they are, and what they're doing. So you don't have to spend a moment of effort in your frontal cortex understanding what you're looking at, and you can really focus on the cross-section. And PTC, for example, does a lot with AR, where you have information that's floating in the air near you, and that's very useful, so doctors don't have to look away from the patient. You can do AR with smartphones and tablets, obviously. This is neither VR nor AR. It's CAD. It's 3D object manipulation. The metaverse, like high fidelity, Second Life, that sort of thing, is great and wonderful, but it isn't VR. Laparoscopy. There are hundreds of papers about it saying, oh, we're doing VR. Some of them say we're doing AR. They're doing neither. What they're doing is truly excellent, but it's not XR. If you add a 3D tracker to a probe, we're looking into that at Children's Hospital for inserting a brain probe. That's still not XR if you're looking at it on a 2D screen. This is augmented reality, the anatomage table, because you have this illusionary head that's in front of you at human scale, and you can use the manipulators to actually interact with it with your sense of touch. This is not XR because the head is in a screen, so you have to interpret where the head is, what it is, etc. And this is a very interesting borderline case, the table. If it was stereographic, head tracked, and was like a body floating in a tank, it would be AR or mixed reality. As it is, it's flat, so it's on the borderline, but it's a very good app. Okay, So enough with that. What are we doing at Children's Hospital? I mentioned that. We do a lot of 3D printing. We're looking at using AR for visualizing anatomy from specific patients. So this is the eyes and optical nerve and a few muscles from an actual patient at Children's Hospital. We did a 3D print, and so we wanted to enhance the print by wrapping an augmented reality around it, creating a mixed reality object. So I can, let's see, I can rotate, I can turn the objects on and off. I can rotate the eyeball, because in the operation they were going to turn his eyeball a little bit so they could get a scalpel in there and sever some extra tendons that weren't supposed to be there. So his eye could move freely. And they used that 3D print and this augmented reality for their conversation before they go into the operating theater. So it worked reasonably well with an iPad, but something like the HoloLens or the Magic Leap would work better. So we're looking into that. Last year, when I spoke, we talked about our work with AR for giving instructions floating in the air. So I don't want to talk too much about that, but inserting an arterial line into a baby's arm is very difficult because you can't see the vein. And this way, you can see the augmented reality on the, that shows you what to do, and then you come in with the physical object behind it. And now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Andrea Gomez in the Department of Anesthesiology. At Children's Hospital, we all serve the patients. My job is to serve the doctors like Andrea so they can do their job better.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm talking in front of a big group of engineers, no doctors today. So I'm going to modify my talk a little bit. So what I'm going to talk today is why I think that augmented reality is very useful for ultrasound training and why ultrasound is very important in the medical field nowadays. And I have nothing to disclose. Yeah, not yet. And then what I'm going to do at the beginning of my talk is I'm going to tell you what we do currently. What do we need to do to train a pediatric regional anesthesiologist that I am, and why IR is good for this. I think that IR is a good thing for this type of training. So first of all, we have to go through medical school. And then after medical school, we do 3 years of anesthesia training. And then we get trained to take care for a year of pediatric patients. And after that, to become a pediatric regional anesthesiologist and be an expert in ultrasound, we have to do an extra either 6 months or a year of training to be able to perform procedures based on ultrasound and other technologies, but ultrasound is mainly what we use to perform these procedures. And why that we use ultrasound for? So ultrasound, we are using it right now for all these applications. Ultrasound, we can use it to assess the heart, the lungs, the airway of the patients. We also use to assess gastric content. We use it for vascular access placement, as Jeff showed you before. We use it for arterial line and central line placements to guide, because many years ago we used to do it blind. Now we use the ultrasound, who is going to guide us to go into the structures without hurting the patient. For that, basically, we need to have a high understanding of ultrasound physics. We need to have a very good knowledge of the anatomy, and we have to have a real good sense of spatial orientation, because we are seeing a 2D picture in a screen of a 3D body. So we are doing a cross-sectional view of an area of the body, and we are seeing in 2D on the screen what is a 3D body. We want to know where we are and exactly where we are looking at. And that's why ultrasound is difficult to learn. And it's also very user-dependent. So as, for image acquisition and for image interpretation, every person does a different thing. So that's why we think that augmented reality is good in this part. What do we do right now to train practitioners in ultrasound? We do tell them, go to these online resources, watch these YouTube videos, read about this. Then we go and do class, and people listen to ultrasound experts and people who are experts on the fields about how to do these procedures. Then we do go straight to either live models or the patients to practice. And then that practice sometimes, if it's just looking at with an ultrasound, it's not going to hurt anyone. But if that practice is straight with ultrasound and doing a procedure, as your first time doing this, is a potential for a risk and a complication in a patient. And that's how we have been doing still nowadays, in 2020, our practice and learning our procedures in medicine. That's why simulation is becoming a very important step in our training. And in that simulation, augmented reality is going to change and revolution our practice. Why augmented reality? Because with augmented reality, we can see the 3D body that we are in a 3D kind of environment. We can see augmented reality will help us with better spatial orientation. It's going to augment structures. It's going to give you a real-time feedback of where you are scanning. So the person who is scanning at the same time is seeing that 2D picture that you're going to see in the practice. At the same time, you're going to look where exactly are you cutting at, and then it's going to show you and understand better what you are doing for the procedure. It's a low-risk training modality, so the person who wants to learn can come and practice multiple times before going into the patient, so that's going to help them, once they get into the patient, know what they are doing. And also, I think that it could potentially reduce the learning curve. So what are the projects that we have currently at Boston Children's with augmented reality and ultrasound? So we are using the ultrasound training for maintenance of point-of-care ultrasound skills. What is point-of-care? Point-of-care is when we use the ultrasound. Basically, sometimes we have our patient in the OR under anesthesia, and they have something that we call hemodynamic stability. Hemodynamic stability, basically, the patient is kind of dying in front of us, and then sometimes we don't have any idea what is going on. So ultrasound is a tool that is going to help us to have a diagnosis and guide our treatment. So that's why we think it's important to do that. So we have been teaching our anesthesiologists in the department to learn how to use ultrasound for those crises or for those times when we have a patient who is very sick. And then we are implementing augmented reality so they can keep that skill over the time, and they can come in multiple times and train without having to be a patient in front of them. And we also, because we need more data about if this is really going to make a difference between the traditional training and the new training, we need data. We are running some research between our pediatric anesthesia fellows, and we are giving a group of them is training with augmented reality, and the other group is receiving the traditional training to see if really we have the results that we want. And also we are doing training. We are adding augmented reality trainers to the crisis resource management simulated scenarios. And basically we get a group of people from the OR, and we just make them a simulated case of a crisis, and we tell them we can use augmented reality to use the ultrasound at that point to give them or help them with a diagnosis, because these simulations also not only have normal patients simulated, but also they have pathology simulated. So they can see things that they don't usually see, and at the time that maybe they are going to see it in the real patient, they will be able to recognize that faster. We are also doing training for teaching of point-of-care ultrasound during workshops or courses that we do. And we are in the process, hopefully, of developing an ultrasound AR training for peripheral and nerve block placements. So what do we want to achieve really with this technology? We want to have more success. We want to improve the outcomes of our patients. We want to be more efficient and safer when we perform procedures. That's it. Thank you.